Look at the French newspapers with Elena Casas.
Hello
again, Elena. Now, the paper's full of headlines there on the latest developments in the Eurozone debt crisis.
Yes, it's the collapse of the Franco-Belgian bank Dexia that makes most French headlines today. So if we have a look first at the business papers, La Tribune is quite dramatic. They headline with the death of a bank. They say that Dexia is going to have to be split up. The good loans that it has, that's mostly loans that it made to French local authorities and town councils that are quite dependent on it for funding, are going to be handed over to La Banque Postale, whereas its toxic assets, the loans that are never going to be paid back, are going to be spun off into a bad bank. That's also on the front page of Les Echos. They go for Dexia, first casualty of the Eurozone crisis. They've got quite a dramatic graph on the front page showing just how quickly that bank's shares fell, and it's also on the front page of Le Figaro. Again, Dexia falls victim to the euro crisis. So all those papers really worried that the implications for other French banks could be enormous, because Dexia really ran on a pretty similar business model to much bigger banks like BNP Paribas and Société Générale. We've got some more interesting, different angles on the crisis, though, in this morning's papers. If we have a look at La Croix, the Catholic paper, they're sort of looking at the psychology of the Eurozone crisis. Their headline is Leaders Being Tested by the Crisis. We've got Greek Prime Minister George Papandreou on that front page. And inside, they sort of do psychological profiles of all the European leaders who are currently trying to save their countries from economic disaster, saying that for some, like Papandreou himself, it's become their reason to stay in power. They say he's just hanging on really until the economy is stable enough that he can hand it over to a new government, and that, if you like, is what is giving him the impetus to keep getting up in the morning and keep trying to resolve the problem. He says, or rather the psychologist that the paper speaks to, who probably don't know him personally, but nevertheless they say that for him, his career has been put to one side. He's just got the country's interests at heart. They also say that for some European leaders, like Nicolas Sarkozy, they actually see it as an opportunity. They say that for Sarkozy, he's hoping that managing the crisis at European level will give him a chance to look presidential and statesman-like on the international stage as he runs up to the election in 7 months' time, and that he's hoping it might actually be looking after this crisis that saves his political legacy.
That's really interesting, because you do often wonder what goes on in the head of a world leader. Now, moving on to something different, this police corruption trial in case, and it seems that it wasn't just confined to one man.
No, you might remember we've talked about this already this week. It started with the number 2 of Lyon's police force, Michel Neret, who's been arrested and is now in custody awaiting trial on charges including influence trafficking, drug trafficking and criminal conspiracy. Now, the front page of Libération this morning says that actually the corruption went quite far beyond just that one man. Several policemen who worked under him in the Lyon Police Department have now been arrested for corruption and drugs offences, as has the most senior policeman in the city of Grenoble, another quite substantial French city in the Alps. Now, inside Libération, they interview Neret's direct boss, the national head of the police, and ask him how is it possible that such a high-profile policeman could get so involved in corruption. Now, his explanation was that Neret may have done too many undercover operations with drug traffickers, trying to seize drugs and so on. So he got to know the traffickers well, and at some point must have decided that it would suit his pocket if he were to cross the line. And of course, they would have done everything to encourage him, the traffickers, because he would be a gold mine, the head of police says. But the paper's editorial has quite a different point of view. They say that it's government policy that's at fault. If they didn't concentrate so much on what they call super cops like Neret, pay them huge salaries and base a policing strategy around them, then maybe they wouldn't start to think that they're so important they're actually above the law. Libération thinks that government should prioritise everyone who works in the police force.
Now, you're also looking at a story that doesn't put the Sorbonne in a very good light.
No, this is on the French news website Rue 89. They're talking about the Sorbonne subsidiary in Abu Dhabi, which was opened recently to great fanfare as a kind of cultural connection project between France and the Middle East. But it turns out it wasn't the greatest career move for one of their international business professors. Nasser bin Graïs has been jailed in Abu Dhabi since April for insulting the government there after he posted some fairly mild remarks on a news website saying that more democracy might be good for the UAE. Rue 89 says it's dreadful that the Sorbonne is not making more of his arrest, and they say that maybe, seeing as the Sorbonne's making 600,000 euros a year in tuition fees from the students enrolled in Abu Dhabi, it might just be too profitable for them to speak out about the human rights abuse.
Okay, thank you very much, Elena Casas, for that look at what's making headlines in the French press. Let's Let's move on now to a reminder of our top